You may have noticed that the OverSimplified YouTube channel has been inactive for over 500 days. But it's not only on YouTube that he's disappeared. His Instagram last post May 2025. His Twitter, or X, or whatever we're calling it this week, last post May 2025. The Discord he used to chat in gone quiet. The Patreon Q&As he used to run for paying members stopped. Every door this man had open to the public, he closed. He didn't just stop making videos, he just stopped full stop. Everywhere, all at once. And the internet, being the internet, has worked out exactly what happened to him. Or at least they think they have. One person established, with some confidence, that he'd had a heart attack, worked too hard on his animation and died. Someone else decided that the Canada thing wasn't a joke after all. He'd tried to invade, and the Canadians had punished him severely. And a third offered, helpfully, that OverSimplified is basically a real-life Santa. He comes once a year. Everyone's delighted what he does, and the rest of the time, you just have to behave. Now, there's a small problem with all of this, and the eagle-eyed among you may have already spotted it. Every one of those theories is at least 3 years old. The last time OverSimplified vanished, and his audience started quietly drafting the eulogy. Someone back then even put up a post titled, "With admirable economy, what happens to OverSimplified?" 8 months of silence, and they wanted answers. And then, miraculously, he came back. And not only did he come back, he released some of the biggest videos of his entire career. The Punic Wars, a 3-part epic. Nearly 2 hours of Hannibal, elephants, and a man drawing circles in the sand while a Roman soldier threatens to kill him. The crisis was over. Santa, once again, had come. Which brings us to the slightly awkward present, because he's vanished a second time. For longer than before, and this time across every platform at once. The people who lived through the last false alarm are looking at the silence and starting to wonder whether this one's different. Whether this time he isn't coming back at all. And that's the question I actually want to answer today. Where did the man go? The cartoon movement asked this same question 4 weeks ago, and their thumbnail rounds up the usual suspects. Lazy, sponsor chasing, dude uncool. In the video itself, however, TCM landed where a lot of sensible people land. Nobody really knows where OverSimplified is. He's probably off in Ireland somewhere cooking up his next masterpiece, and only time will tell. And indeed, whilst that is a fair place to stop, I don't want to be the one stopping there. Because since then, I've gone digging through his Patreon, his merch store, his dead socials, his own words, and I think the evidence points somewhere more specific than who knows. I think you can actually narrow it down. So stay with me, because I'm going to show you a Patreon page that proves that he's only in it for the money crowd have it backwards. I'm going to show you the 13th of May 2025, the day he switched off every light he had all at once. And maybe, just maybe, I'm going to show you that OverSimplified has been hiding in plain sight this whole time. Because there are really only 5 explanations for where this man has actually gone. And those 5 theories are the spine of this whole video. Indeed, each one gets its own chapter. He's quietly making something enormous. He's burned out. Maybe life simply moved on. Maybe he's rich enough that he simply never needs to upload again. Which doesn't make me jealous at all. Or number 5, the one I keep coming back to, the one on the thumbnail, he disappeared on purpose. But before any theory makes sense, you need one thing. You need to know how an oversimplified video actually gets made. Because the answer is hiding in the workload. Which is also, conveniently, our first theory. Theory 1. He's making something enormous. Before we dive in, only 20% of you right now watching are actually subscribed. For a video about a man whose audience took him for granted, that feels like tempting fate. So please, hit the button, let's fix it. I want at least 50%. Into the video. Let's start with the kindest explanation and the best evidence. OverSimplified hasn't gone anywhere. He's just making something gigantic the way he always does, and we're being impatient. To weigh that theory, you have to understand who this man is and how the work happens. You see, for almost a decade, nobody even knew who he was. He was a blank white face. No hair, no clothes, no features. Just 2 dots and a voice, narrating the bloodiest events in human history as though reading out a mildly disappointing weather forecast. He didn't show his face, he didn't do interviews. The closest anyone got to a real name were the letters S. Webster, tucked into the corner of one early video like his signature on a ransom note. In 2026 though, we know a bit more, so here's what we know exactly. His name is Stuart Webster. He grew up in Northern Ireland, in Lisbon, after his family moved over from the States when he was a child. He studied film, and in 2016, he taught himself to animate, made a video about the First World War, and uploaded it under a name that doubled neatly as a disclaimer: OverSimplified. It did 50,000 views in a few days, which essentially never happens to a channel's first video. And then the channel was underway. By 2018, it was his full-time job. By 2019, he'd passed 1 million subscribers, all while remaining to 9 million people, a faceless white blob. Now, here's the thing that makes that he's making something enormous theory so plausible. These videos take an extraordinarily long time to make. And for once, we don't have to guess why, because he tells us himself. On his website, there's a page where he recruits people to help. It lists, in his own flat little style, what the job needs: After Effects for animation, Photoshop for asset creation, and, quote, a functioning brain for research and writing. That throwaway line tells you more than any interview could, because it lays out that an oversimplified video is 3 enormous jobs all welded together. Someone has to research and write it. And these scripts are dense. The Second Punic War alone covers 17 years of war across 3 continents. Somebody has to build every character, every background, every map, every elephant by hand in Photoshop. And then somebody has to animate all of it, frame by frame, in After Effects. And the team doing this is tiny. It's Stuart himself, and it's his brother Ian Webster, who, it turns out, has been there the whole time, producing, researching, doing voices. He indeed walked on stage beside Stuart at the Webbies. And then he also seems to have a small rotating pipeline of freelance animators he hires through that same website. For the Pig War video, he even brought in the British impressionist Charlie Hopkinson to voice the pig, the first character in the channel's history with a voice that wasn't just Stuart doing all of them himself. So this isn't a man banging out a podcast in his pajamas. It's closer to a tiny animation studio producing a short film. Except the short films keep getting longer, and the more ambitious they got, the longer the gaps grew. Early on, a new one every couple of months, then 6 months, then 9, then a year, then more. The Second Punic War wasn't 1 video or 2, it was 3, the last running nearly 50 minutes, the longest thing he's ever made. And here's the detail that might suggest to you that he's actually completely in on the whole thing. When he released parts 1 and 2, he promised part 3 wouldn't take a year. It arrived 364 days later, 1 day before the anniversary. In his words, "See, it didn't take a year. 364 days is not a year." OverSimplified always keeps his promises. So, no, I really don't think that OverSimplified is a lazy man. The lateness isn't really a bug in the oversimplified experience. The lateness is actually the bit, which is exactly why the he's making something huge theory is so tempting. It's just him doing what he's always done, and a third Punic War is a beast that could swallow a year whole. He's somewhere on frame 4 of an elephant, and one day it'll just appear. So, that sounds persuasive. Why don't we just close the case here? Well, because it explains a long wait, it doesn't explain this wait, the longest he's ever done by some distance. And it doesn't explain what happens when you look at how he actually left. So hold on to that. Firstly though, let's go for the darker twin of this very theory. Theory 2. He's burned out. The perfectionism that makes the enormous project theory plausible, the books, the endless tweaking, the refusal to let a scene go until it's right, is also one of the most reliable ways known to man to grind yourself to a dead stop. OverSimplified does have some help, yes, but on a project where one person holds the final say over every frame, a team doesn't lighten that load so much as weight on it. And to feel why that would be a tragedy, you have to remember what he was actually capable of. Because if you've never seen an OverSimplified video, here's what all the fuss is about. He takes the grimmest events in history: the World Wars, the French Revolution, the Cold War, the American Civil War, Napoleon and the fall of empires, and makes them genuinely funny, without ever letting you forget the real thing was horrifying. And then, for balance, he'll spend 20 minutes on the Emu War, the time Australia mobilised the military against several thousand birds and lost. The humour comes from dropping modern absurdity into ancient catastrophe. In the Second Punic War, the Romans are losing badly, so they decide the gods must be angry. They fix this by burying a couple of people alive and beating some others to death. The narrators only comment as they finish,
"Okay, now that that's out of our system, Let's go find a real solution.
Yes, that's the trick across every freaking video. Stalin, Napoleon, Henry VIII, all of them get the same deadpan treatment. The grimmer the history, the drier the joke. And the jokes do real work, because underneath them, the history is solid enough that schools use these videos in their classrooms, which Stewart has said adds a strange pressure, knowing teachers rely on you to get it right. And here's a lovely origin detail that proves that very point. The script for that first World War I video was apparently far filthier than what went out. He cleaned it up partly for the classroom, and partly, he said, because his mum disapproved. That is the thing that went quiet. So now imagine that man holding himself to that standard, with no one above him to say ship it, and you can see how the gift becomes the trap. There's even evidence for this theory inside the operation itself. As this comment says, I'm actually a mod in the OverSimplified Discord server, and we're in the same boat. A ton of people join and always ask about the upcoming video, but we don't even know if there is one. He used to talk to us and let us know about upcoming updates, but that faded away, along with the Q&A he used to give for Patreon members in the server. Hopes this helped clear up some of the confusion. So the people closest to him don't even know if there's a video coming. That's not a man mid-sprint, that's a man who's pulled back. And there's actually a precedent for this that fits almost too well. His own stated hero, Bill Wirtz, whose History of Japan got Stewart started, did exactly this. After an upload pointedly titled Might Quit in March 2019, Wirtz vanished for the rest of that year and then all of the next. 2 years of nothing. Fans were convinced he'd quit for good. In reality, he'd actually got away to teach himself a new animation program and actually came back even better. Wirtz himself talks openly about his perfectionism. He says he's had to become an expert on carelessness just to finish anything. And remember, OverSimplified learned the craft from a man who lived exactly that. So, burnout fits the silence and fits his influences, but it assumes he's stuck. And so the next theory asks an even colder question. What if he simply doesn't need to come back at all? Theory 3. He's just in it for the money? This is the cynic's theory. The loudest one, the one you see in some comment sections. They say OverSimplified only uploads for the payday and right now he can't be bothered. One decided his uploads run on a merch clock, writing, "We should get a video soon since he has a U2's figure that's about to be released." As if a figurine pre-order was the smoke that meant a video fire was coming. One put it about as bluntly as it gets. I don't understand why OverSimplified hasn't uploaded in 6 months. 20-minute videos only take a few days to make, but for some reason, OverSimplified takes 6 months to make one. I feel like this is some elaborate scam to try to get people subscriptions and Patreon donations while giving very little in return. I'm considering unsubscribing from OverSimplified due to his long upload schedule. Remember this post, because it's about to fall apart in the most satisfying way. So, let me show you, with his own pages, why it's not just unkind, but provably backwards. And we'll start with the obvious. He doesn't need the money. The back catalogue, over 1 billion views of evergreen history, the kind people will still watch in 10 years, earns ad revenue every day, whether he lifts a finger or not. The merch store is live right now too. Apparel, pins, drinkware, a whole Napoleon collection. Defect to the West shirts, Emu War shirts, a Hannibal U2's figure. Fully stocked, fully trading. The shop seems to run itself, indeed, it's busier than the studio. And then there's the Patreon, which is where the cynic's theory detonates. Because look at how it's structured. OverSimplified doesn't charge patrons monthly. He charges them per video uploaded. $2 a video, $6.50 across the tiers. He has roughly 1,500 paying patrons. So let's break that down. If OverSimplified were the money-grubbing sponsor chaser the critics claimed, he'd be uploading constantly, because every upload triggers 1,500 payments at once. A purely mercenary creator in his exact position would be a content machine. Instead, OverSimplified sits on the upload, the one action that would cash that check 1,500 times over, and he refuses to take it for a year and counting. The man won't pull the lever that pays him. So he only uploads for the money doesn't just fail, it's backwards. I mean, if he only uploaded for the money, he'd never stop. And then there's a final, almost poignant detail. His Patreon page still carries an old about message from the earlier days. It was never even updated. So imagine as I read it, the younger, hungrier Stewart pleading for support. I love making these videos and I want to be able to make more. The problem is that I'm a one-man team, and as a man, I need to do things such as eat. Therefore, I have to work at my regular job so that people will give me money. With some Patreon support, I'll be able to dedicate much more time to making oversimplified videos, which would be a dream come true. And he got the dream. The support, the million subscribers, the full-time career, the Webby. Every obstacle that younger man named, the day job, the money, the time, gone. And yet, he uploads less than ever. Which tells you, more clearly than anything, the thing throttling Oversimplified was never money. In terms of content creation, money seemed to get solved completely and nothing changed. Whatever this is, it lives somewhere the money was never going to reach. So it doesn't seem like it's cash. Which leaves the human explanation, that he simply grew up and moved on, and the one that the whole fanbase is really afraid of. Theory 4. A tragedy befell him? When someone vanishes this completely, this suddenly, the mind can't help but go to dark places. And that's what the fanbase thinks too. Some fans are genuinely concerned that something's happened to him. The more reasonable version of that fear is mundane. Maybe life just moved on. Fans assume he's gone quiet because he's got a real job now and no time for it. Except, Oversimplified was the real job. He was full-time since 2018. There was no day job keeping him away. So if this was the job, something had to actively replace it. Oversimplified lives in Japan now. His brother Ian's moved back to Lisbon. The two who built this thing are on opposite sides of the planet. People grow up, priorities drift. That's the dull human version, and it's probably partly true. But such reasonable theories don't hang around long in the absence of any updates from Oversimplified himself. Because in that absence, the fanbase held a year-long argument with itself, and it splits down the middle. On the one side, the aggrieved. As this fan says, I used to be in the camp of, he's providing free content, let's stop complaining. But the bare minimum would be brief updates on socials. Even a simple expect a hiatus in uploading or this next video will take much longer than the last would work. He doesn't need to give reasons or excuses for not uploading. Just update the community on what's been going on. The next fan added to this and then went even further. You know what? I agree. Like, going absolutely dead with nothing at all is a dick move. Yeah, we understand content creators need breaks, but there's other content whose art is much more complicated, working solo, and they upload once every 2 to 3 months. Yes, he has to do scripting, which is understandable, but it becomes stupid when we're waiting 8 months. An 8-month wait would be a pipe dream, by the way. At this point, we're in over a year. Anyway, back to the comments. There are no updates. The only thing we've heard from him is random Twitter and another YouTuber saying they saw him in Japan. He can at least give us updates. There's even a whole post dedicated to Oversimplified's lack of update. While I love Oversimplified's videos, I'm annoyed by the lack of updates on his part. He has cultivated a large community here and on YouTube, and while we've all been patiently awaiting his next upload, he is disrespecting us by going radio silent. We're not entitled to anything new, but it still rubs me the wrong way when he won't take 5 minutes to write an update letting us know about the future. It would alleviate much of the concern. But he hasn't done it, and quite frankly, I'm not happy about it. But honestly, the funniest evidence of how long this has gone on is the throwaway stuff. The one-liners. One said, I've legitimately had a kid since the last upload. She's 3 months now. Another said, Jesus Christ, I'm gonna graduate college before he posts again. Someone simply wrote, any day now. Any day now. Another reaching for an explanation. Is he waiting for World War III? And as for my personal favourite, the 3 biggest lies. Santa, the Easter Bunny, and coming eventually. Now, let's talk about the reason I titled this chapter the way I did. Because the fear that something terrible happened to him, it didn't stay a fear. It seems like somebody went ahead and literally invented a tragedy. Yes, at one point, somebody literally forged an email. A fake screenshot of a reply made to look like it came from Stuart himself. Posted, of course, as fact. The post reads, Oversimplified quit YouTube. And here's what makes it not just cruel, but provably false. It's from 2024. So it was disproven within months when the man it claimed was finished came back and dropped 3 of his biggest videos. So, before I read it, this is a lie and a provable one at that. I'm reading it because it shows exactly where people's minds go when a creator goes quiet. Oversimplified quit YouTube. It was all his plan. I emailed him and found out he is never going to do part 3. He wanted to leave us a mystery. The IMDb page says 2016 to 2024. Edit a screenshot of the email. Hello Ned, and thank you for your email. It has been a lot of fun to make those videos on YouTube, and I began storyboarding the part 3 of SPW. Unfortunately, I lost my brother to overdose and have reconsidered priorities in life. Cheers, Stuart. So, someone invented a death about a man's family because they were impatient for a cartoon about history to be released. That is genuinely a disgusting thing to do. And yet, here we are, seeing all this this speculation starts up again. As this viewer said, I don't care if he's absent for a year or 10 years. I just want something that is educational and funny. It's so sad that his Reddit fanbase is toxic as hell. Other fans miss him and are wondering why they haven't heard anything. As this one said, about time the greatest historian ever lived dropped some updates just to let us know you haven't been dead for a while. And about time you drop an update, bro. We don't mind waiting for the videos, but do drop updates once in a while so we know everything's okay. Fans are even speculating that he may no longer even be alive, for which there is precisely zero evidence. So whilst half the fanbase lost their minds, the other half went the opposite way. They wanted fans to leave the man alone. I think he decided to take a break, a long break. Let the man rest without bothering him. He'll come back, hopefully. So the only thing we can do right now is wait and, I don't know, discuss history, I guess. And then this next fan puts the entitlement in its place. How do any of you know what's going on in his life? Maybe he's dealing with something. Nobody needs to know everybody's business. Surely you don't put all of your stuff on the internet either? If we don't ever get another video, I'll be sad. But he spent a tremendous amount of time putting out some stellar content, and maybe it's just time for him to turn his talents to something else. It will be a loss for us, sure, but he needs to have a life too. He's under no obligation to ever do another video. That comment is totally true, I get that. But here's the thing that puts the tragedy fear to bed. There's actual evidence he's fine. And even evidence he isn't gone for good at all. Yay! Let me prove it to you guys in the last theory. The one I think actually fits. Theory 5. Deliberate disappearance. Look at the shape of this man's career. He hid his face for 10 years because the mystery was the whole point. He turned being late into a joke he could win. He built an audience that treats every disappearance as an event and every return as a resurrection. He understands in his bones that what you withhold is as powerful as what you give. Now, let's look at how he left, because this is the evidence that turns he drifted off into he made a decision. He didn't fade across his platforms at different speeds the way someone losing interest would. On the 13th of May 2025, he posted the same triumphant message to all of them. I won a Webby. On YouTube, Instagram, X, Facebook. Every channel he had on the same day. And then every one went dark at once. The last post on all of them was mid-May 2025. Now, that might seem strange, but in the world of entertainment, it's not actually unusual. You see, people who understand timing do this regularly. Daft Punk split right after their commercial peak, Helmets Off, no encore. Friends ended as one of the most watched shows on television, top of the ratings, and walked away anyway. Yes, the most valuable move at the very top is to stop climbing. You leave while the fans still very much want more. And yes, he said he'd keep going. We'll keep on going from there in the Belfast Live interview weeks before he vanished. But a man who hid his face for a decade and weaponized his own lateness, saying we'll keep going and then disappearing? That might be the most on-brand thing he's ever done. But I promised evidence, not just a tidy theory. So here's the thing that complicates my own verdict. There's a smaller channel called Gistery. Similar style indeed to OverSimplified. I can't confirm it 100%, but according to one commenter, an OverSimplified animator works on it. And here's the part that very much isn't a rumour. Gistery themselves, replying to a viewer who asked, "Is this your video or OverSimplified's?" said this. "Those screenshots are from my own video. I can't share anything from OverSimplified or say when their next video will be finished." Look, you can't say you can't reveal when the next video will be finished unless you know there's one being finished. And asked outright if more is coming, Gistery said simply, there will be eventually. Do you see what that means? Someone connected to the operation. Someone still posting, still talking to their audience. Doing all the ordinary things that Stuart conspicuously isn't, is quietly confirming more OverSimplified exists. And yet, unfortunately, refusing to say when. Which means the disappearance might be deliberate and temporary. He may well be coming back. But doesn't even that fit the pattern? The one person close enough to know is holding the line. The silence is kept. And keeping a silence that well for that long, while a whole audience forges emails and measures to wait in their own children's ages, that takes something that looks an awful lot like a decision. I wasn't the first person, however, to ask where he'd gone. The cartoon movement got here before me, so I asked him to weigh in.
Hey everyone. So, speaking on the topic of OverSimplified, one of the biggest mysteries is his absence. Now, subscribers of his channel are obvious to the fact he takes upwards to a year to make his next video, but there has never been a break as long as this one. It served as a mystery as to when he'll upload his next video, but frankly, most of the mystery leads more on what he does in his spare time. Now, if you saw my video on OverSimplified's Disappearance, I briefly brought up how some say he works in the film industry, which as you can see with this screenshot is in fact true. But you could also argue that he might just be living his life. According to an article by Bedfast Live, Stewart moved to Tokyo, Japan after studying film at Queen's University. Now, the article was published in May of last year, so I definitely take that information with a grain of salt. But if it is true, it could explain why he seems to keep such a low profile outside of YouTube. I'm honestly not sure whether OverSimplified is going to publish his next video. I mean, for one, he hasn't uploaded anything across his social since last year, and even his mods on Discord have discussed how Stewart hadn't reached out to them despite many people asking about it. Though one of his animators, who has his own animation channel called Gissery, I'm sorry, how do you pronounce that? But he mentioned in the replies to some of his comments that a video is currently being worked on. So while that's definitely a good sign, I'd still be cautious about when it will actually release. But that's my take on this entire situation, so I'll hand things back to you, SnipeSnap.
Thanks, TCM. Like you, I can't say for certain he's actually gonna come back. Where that leaves us. Here's what I'm confident of. Those easy answers are almost certainly wrong. He's not lazy, the workload is the entire problem. He's not a sponsor-chasing sellout. His own per-upload Patreon proves it. If it were about money, he'd never have stopped. And despite the genuine best efforts of a forged email, he has not, in fact, died. What's left is a man who had every reason to continue and every means to stop. Who ended on a cliffhanger he may or may not ever be able to resolve, who showed his face at the summit, posted "I won" to every platform he owned on the same afternoon, and then walked into the fog and pulled it shut behind him. If you make me choose one theory, I'd say that the fifth one is probably the most likely. I think his disappearance was deliberate. I think a man that careful, that aware of his own myth, that comfortable letting silence speak for him, looked at the top of the mountain and decided that was the place to leave us standing. Maybe for a year, maybe for good, but I believe this was all done on purpose. But the honest truth is that I don't know that. Nobody does, because he literally never said. Everyone hunting for the answer, from the Discord mods to the bloke who faked the email, to me here making this video, has exactly one thing in common. Not one of us actually knows. He's made sure of that. Which, if the deliberate disappearance reading is right, is the most fitting ending he could have possibly written. So I'll do the one thing OverSimplified never did and hand it over. The cartoon movement was the first one to ask the question, and I've indeed had my go. And I'm nowhere near arrogant enough to tell you I think I've closed it. So tell me, which theory's yours? Is he on frame 4000 of the Third Punic War? Did he burn out the way his own hero once did? Did he just grow up and move on? Or did he look at 9 million subscribers in a webby and decide that that was the perfect place to stop? Let me know your guys' thoughts in that comment section below. And if you've actually got a source, do use it, because it'll carry more weight than, trust me, bro. Thank you so much for the channel members who support me in making these extended videos like the one you've just seen. If you want to join them, please click that button. It would really help me out in making more videos such as this. Thank you so much for watching. I wonder when we'll see OverSimplified with another upload. I can't freaking wait. Till next time, Snipe, Snap, out.